Leaders from across the Western Hemisphere are in Los Angeles this week for the Summit of the Americas. Last night, President Biden unveiled a new economic plan to help respond to the region's most pressing challenges: migration, climate change, and the pandemic. But these issues have been overshadowed by disagreements over who should participate. Here's John Yang.
In a city where the drama is usually on the big screen and velvet ropes are the norm, who's not at the Summit of the Americas is as much of the story as the gathering itself. Designed to be a show of hemispheric unity for almost the last 30 years, there's been discord over the guest list. Citing concerns over a lack of democracy, this year the host United States barred 3 nations.
One of the key elements of this summit is democratic governance. And these 3 countries are not exemplars, to put it mildly, of democratic governance.
Not invited: Cuba, with its nearly 65-year history of communism; Venezuela, where Nicolas Maduro has tightened his grip on power; and Nicaragua, where former Marxist Daniel Ortega was declared winner of his 4th consecutive election after jailing his rivals. In response, President Andrés Manuel López Obrador of Mexico, the U.S.'s second-largest trading partner, refused to attend.
I believe we need to change the policy that has been imposed for centuries, a policy of exclusion and dominance that disregards the sovereignty of other countries.
The presidents of Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador are also skipping the meeting. Still, President Biden is unbowed, speaking last night of cooperation, not exclusion.
No longer is this a question of what will we do, what will the United States do for the Americas. The question is what we can accomplish by working together.
Migration in the region is at unprecedented levels. More than 5 million Venezuelans are displaced across Latin America. Migrants from around the world cross the Colombia-Panama border, and a crisis continues to unfold at the U.S.-Mexico border. They're fleeing political and economic instability and a new wave of anti-establishment and authoritarian leaders. At the summit, Panama's foreign minister spoke for many.
What is happening in democracy is that there's a lot less trust in our leaders. The same thing is happening in all countries.
The Americas have also been devastated by natural disasters and the aftermath of the pandemic, another focus of this year's summit.
So let's use this summit to tackle the obstacles to growth. Come together around new ideas and new opportunities to take our region's biggest challenges on and defeat them.
But as the summit goes on, the diplomatic controversy is at the forefront, and the future of U.S. influence in the region uncertain. The summit runs through tomorrow, and now 2 perspectives on this. John Feely is the former U.S. ambassador to Panama. He's currently the executive director of the Center for Media Integrity of the Americas, a nonprofit that promotes public media in Latin America. And Arturo Sarachan previously served as Mexico's ambassador to the United States. He's now at the Brookings Institution. Gentlemen, thank you and welcome to you both. Mr. Feely, I want to start with you. Migration, a big issue. They want to try to achieve something out of this. But without the leaders of Mexico, Honduras, Guatemala, and El Salvador, can something really meaningful come out of this meeting?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And, it's a shame that they are not here. I think that it's also a shame that the issue of invitations wasn't decided a lot earlier, as has been done in past summits. For example, in 2015, when Cuba was involved, and the hemisphere seemed to be able to accept it. You can make good arguments on both sides, but the bottom line is the invitation issue should have been put to bed a long time ago. With regard to the abstentions, however, by the Northern Triangle, the Central American and the Mexican president, I think, quite frankly, they're the losers in all of this. It's interesting to note that they said they're not coming, but they did, in fact, all send their foreign ministers and pretty good-sized delegations here. So it's pretty clear that they want to be in the room where it happens when these issues are being discussed. And I also think that President Biden and the Biden administration have put out a pretty practical call. We haven't seen the declaration yet, but to cooperate on migration. A lot of these countries, especially Mexico, have historically been migrant-sending nations. Well, they're now receiving migrants. There's over 150,000 Haitians in Mexico, and Mexico really doesn't have a lot of experience in handling them. So I think something can be achieved. It won't happen at the summit, but it's a shame that they aren't represented at their highest levels.
Mr. Sarukhan, the Northern Triangle countries, the losers, as Mr. Feely says. Do you agree with that?
Look, I think it's very simple, John. You either sit at the table or you're on the menu. I don't want to suggest that these countries will be on the menu, but there is, and that's the reason why the foreign secretaries, as John says, are there. Now, having said that, you have to recognize that a lot of the legwork has already been done. That is, Mexico and the United States have been engaging with one another on migration issues for a good part of this year. There's been a very profound conversation as to how they can continue collaborating. So I really, Mexico's absence, and maybe even some of the Central American nations, it does obviously, it's a political and diplomatic sandbagging. It's a diplomatic ambush of President Biden, which I think is extremely unfortunate, particularly coming from a country like mine, the U.S.'s #1 trading partner. But at the end of the day, there's already enough muscle tone that has been building, particularly on migration collaboration, that I don't think will derail what the White House will unveil and present and hopefully start building upon in the coming weeks and months.
Mr. Feely, of course, what triggered all this was the non-invitations to Cuba, Venezuela, and Nicaragua. This was done in the name of fostering and promoting democracy, but there are a number of countries who are there, who did get invited, that are trending away from democracy. Where should the Biden administration have drawn the line in this effort to foster democracy? I'm sorry, Mr. Feely, we don't have your audio, so I'm going to ask that question, that same question. Let's ask that same question of Ambassador Sarukhan. Was the United States justified in denying these other countries an invitation, yet also inviting countries that are sort of trending away from democracy?
It's hard to draw the line because, as you say, there are some countries where you're starting to see some democratic erosion. Mexico, Brazil, 2 examples. But I think it's very clear that Venezuela, Cuba, and Nicaragua are in a category of their own, that the democratic destruction, in some cases erosion, is really dramatic. And I think the administration was right in establishing this as a basic criteria. I think the countries of the Americas do need to be bound by at least a common set of principles regarding democracy and democratic resilience. Remember, every single country except Cuba signed an Inter-American Democratic Charter as a result of the Summit of the Americas in Quebec in 2001. So I think that in this regard, it's the right call. Now, having said this, obviously many countries in the Americas look at the U.S. and look at the U.S. engagement with other authoritarian regimes around the world, with which the United States has profound, constant, deep political diplomatic engagement, and some obviously see here a bit of a contradiction and some hypocrisy. But regardless, I think the Biden administration made the right call.
And of course, this also led to the leader of the nation you represented in Washington, of Mexico, not coming. This Mexico, arguably, along with Canada, the most important U.S. partner in the Americas. What do you think the effect of not having Mexico at the table is having on this meeting?
Well, this is a known goal for Mexico's interests in foreign policy. Again, if Uzbekistan was having the summit, Mexico's relationship with Uzbekistan is minimal. But, with $1.5 billion a day of trade going in both directions, this is a significant, I think, slap in the face of a relationship that should be built on a strategic vision for how Canada, the United States, and Mexico deepen our architectural footprint. We will have to wait and see. I think some of the reactions that we're already seeing on Capitol Hill, John, from both Democrats and Republicans who are concerned that the Mexican president's decision to sort of almost provide cover to these regimes in Cuba, Nicaragua, and Venezuela is a bad sign coming from, again, one of the United States' largest trading partners and a vital nation for the security, the well-being, and the prosperity of the United States.
Arturo Saracan, former Mexican ambassador to the United States. We apologize to Ambassador John Feely. We lost his audio, but we apologize for the technical difficulties.